Kristy with Kristy Barber, and welcome to the Fintech Community. This is where we share all things technology and QuickBooks and how to utilize those for you. Even all of those pain points that you're seeing on a daily basis, know when you're going to outgrow QuickBooks, and then also knowing what is those next steps of where you need to move to. So last week I went down this rant with QuickBooks and the free plugins that they give. And a lot of times they're really good and other days they are not good. And this one specifically was the Shopify free integrator. And QuickBooks has changed a lot of things recently, as you know, with the new layout and how all these integrations come in. But this was, items were not coming over from Shopify to QuickBooks. I needed to be able to have the button that says manual sync. QuickBooks is like, that's over here. I'm like, well, you know what, it used to be, it's not, and I can't do a manual sync. They're like, well, if you just spend some money and get our technical support, we can go put that button there. And I'm like, but I shouldn't have to. And so went on this thing of when I ask for something for free, I get it, free is not really free, but to the point of when a button disappears, that is not longer my fault and I shouldn't have to be paying for it. And I know a lot of my clients get frustrated too of, we used to have this ability and now we don't anymore and there's a cost associated with it. And so that kind of just started down the line of what makes sense to have as free, what makes sense to have as a paid integration, because you're going to get a lot better service and additional data points that would come over. So QuickBooks does have a list of, all the connectors that will sync with them. It's called their App Marketplace. This is a good way to just be able to see all of the things that they will sync with. You can go for days of what's here. And again, these are just kind of the things that pop up in the front. You can go and drill down even more and find additional things that are there. But the nice part about it is you can click and they usually have a pre-built connector that will bring those data points. And so that makes things, pretty easy to use. A good example is always Payroll. If you're not using QuickBooks Payroll, you're using a Gusto or an ADP, all of those things, there is a connector that will bring it over. Usually with ADP, it's better to go with them and there's some extra things on that to bring additional data points over if you don't have the free. But then also with like Gusto, I have multiple clients that use it and we just have the sync, it goes over, matches all the GL accounts, and then everything's taken care of, you just match it up. But then there's other things of when you enter the e-commerce space, it kind of gets, there's a lot of data flowing through, and e-commerce accounting is very different than regular accounting just because of clearing accounts and all the payment channels that are coming in, gateways that people are paying from. And QuickBooks has started to move to adapting some of those connectors. So they have one for Shopify, one for PayPal, and it syncs to your store and it brings over those data points. Again, it looks very different than if you were to buy a solution like a ConnectBooks or an A2X or Weebly. There's different things out there that, those paids are going to give you a lot better data points to be able to record so you can make better decisions. However, with the QuickBooks, sometimes it's expensive and you don't want to go spend an extra $9 a month or $39, whatever it is. It's a low entry point, but when you add that up times 12, that's a lot of money for small businesses. And when does it make sense to move away from that connector and go to something else? And so to that point of with Shopify and this connector that continually breaks for my client and myself, it's gotten to the point now where they need to move to a better connector, like an A2X or ConnectBooks. And again, I'll put all these links in the white paper for you to take a look at. But these types of things help those data points come over, because if there is an error, I just call whichever solution I'm working with, usually in the chat, and say, hey, you know what, this didn't sync over, what happened? And then they'll go look into it. Sometimes it's a mapping issue and I can go fix that of, hey, Shopify added a new payment channel, my client forgot to tell me that they did, and so it aired out coming over because it doesn't know where to go. So there's a handful, if we kind of want to break it down into various sections. So if we look at, let's start e-commerce first. I think A2X and ConnectBooks, those are my two favorite, depending on your needs. So a good example, A2X doesn't really fully handle TikTok marketplace when it comes through on the Shopify side. ConnectBooks does. And so if you're a heavy TikTok store, you want A2X, you're going to want the ConnectBooks. So things like that, evaluating how your channels come in. But both of those are really great with bringing the data that you need from your Shopify channel or Shopify page over into QuickBooks, looking at, what's really going on with, sales and refunds, discounts, all of that. Then if we look next at like inventory modules of things that would plug in, so like Fishbowl and Katana, there's a whole bunch of different ones out there, and I can list more in this toolkit that we'll give you to look at, but it's the same thing of really understand what space are you in, because that's very unique to your industry. So like construction has very different inventory needs as opposed to, like a certain type of manufacturing company or a textile company. So making sure that when you're evaluating those inventories, making sure that they understand your niche that you're in. And then looking at like CRMs, I know Mailchimp is still a lot of people's favorites. Not necessarily mine. I like it for a lot of people. I have found that it's difficult to use. I don't think it's very intuitive, but other people navigate it with their eyes closed. So I think it comes down to preferences that way. Like, what do you like? There's, Constant Contact, there's, Mailchimp, and there is like ActiveCampaign, HubSpot, all of those. And again, it comes down to cost. What are you actually going to use it for? And how is it going to fit your needs today? And then at least I always say, can these work with you for a couple of years? Because you don't want to have to go through the process again and then train your staff on to use something new. Because it was funny, I actually had a client like that, probably about 8 years ago, and they love to try new apps. And all of a sudden it'd be like, hey, we're moving to this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we just got on this one 2 weeks ago, and now we're here. So thinking of things like that, of what would work for your team pretty well. And then also looking at payroll, I think Gus is a great one, ADP, Paychecks. Looking at what company you want like good reports out of, and then just making they sync over to QuickBooks. So a lot of those are really good to have. But our business does things this way, so we can't do that. You either need to help us mold and we come to a good conclusion of how things work, or I'm going to have to look at something else. Your colleagues, your networks, everybody that wants to be a part of this. The whole reason I started it is I see a lot of small businesses, they kind of get taken advantage in these consultants by vendors, and just having a place where they can come and ask questions, as well as just learn what else is out there to be a part of. And so hopefully this has brought you a lot of value and continues to be valuable along the way. So make sure to